Hi, welcome to the White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to review the film The Last of the Mohicans. Somehow, if you haven't heard of this film, this was quite a big deal in the early 90s. I believe it came out in 91, 92. I'm not going to do all the actor's name and who the director was and stuff. But again, it came out in the very early 90s, and it looked remarkable. This was the production design. Everything, the story takes place in the late 1700s, and you feel like you're there. It's that type of film. The clothing, costumes, the aesthetic of the whole thing, you feel like you're wandering around in the Carolina mountains in the 1700s. The story's based on the book by the same name. It's the same basic story. You have a guy named Hawkeye who was adopted by two Mohican Native Americans, whose names I'm not going to remember. And the three of them are out hunting. They stop in to hang out with some British low-income English settlers on the frontier of the Carolinas, and who are friends of theirs. And then the one guy, Jack, who's is part of the colonial militia or is going to start a colonial militia as England is at war or soon to go to war with France, and then the Native American tribes. So you have the two formal militaries, you have the colonial militias, and then you have the Native American tribes. Some are on one side, some are the other of this conflict. And I love this about this movie because that's the way it was. It was the French Indian Wars, and everybody wants to portray these as really simple white people versus red people, and it never happened. There was never a conflict like that. It was, you had European countries, and then you had Native Americans who are allied with the different countries, and then you had all those small little groups, and that's the way conflicts work. It's never as black and white as it's portrayed through history, taught in the classroom and stuff. So this movie really gets that right. The performances are outstanding. Daniel Day-Lewis stands up, but there's a slew of talent in this film. Wes Studi's in this. He does just a tremendous job. All the actors are really good. The film looks great. It stands up beautifully, and the score is one of the most memorable scores. It's up there with like Shawshank Redemption as memorable scores. It's this and that. These are number one and number two, or number two, number one for the 90s in terms of memorable scores. And this might even edge Shawshank. Shawshank had a beautiful score, but there's just something other level. And everybody's ever played violin has played the theme from this, the Last Mohicans. So, excellent filmmaking, excellent acting. It holds up wonderfully. It's just puts you into that world, and seeing it, I saw it in the theater, and it was just like, holy fucking shit. At least I think I saw it in the theater. But I mean, some of the shots, the painting shots of just the mountains, it's just absolutely gorgeous. In a way, with visual cinematography that, you didn't see in the 80s. You didn't see in the 70s or the 60s for sure. So this was, the early 90s, something about camera tech had kicked up to the next level from the 80s, from the 70s, the 60s, and so forth. And this was just like, holy, watching this was like, wow. It's mind blowing. I just don't give a shit about the story. That's the only problem. I don't give a shit about the story. It's a love triangle. There's a British officer in love with this British lady, and then Hawkeye falls in love with her, and she doesn't want to be with Duncan, who's the British guy, and then the war happens, and some people say the fight scenes are really good. In some ways they are, but they're also like shit at the same time, because there's a lot of extras, just like with fighting the guy. This is a rifle, this is a musket rather, and they're like, "Brr," but nobody really knows what they're doing. Once these big spanning fights take place, it's like I don't like it. Um, and then it's very loosely based on some historical events, but I'm just like, I just don't care. I'd rather see a proper war film get made than you know the love story is in the forefront, the war is in the backdrop, and I'd say throw out the love story and do the war movie. But love stories make money, like Titanic. If you made a good proper film about the Titanic, dudes like me would love it, and then nobody else would go to see it. Instead, you made it a love story, and it broke box office records. So you take something epic, you put a love story at the center of it, and you cash your check. And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care about love triangles. I don't care about romance. Like, make the war movie or make the romantic movie. Don't put them in the same sandwich. So I'm sorry, but that's my thoughts on Last Mohicans. I don't care. It looks amazing though. Cheers.